Okay, yeah. All right. So, quick review of yesterday. So we were trying to answer our questions on this halacha. I'm not going to review the halacha of the tova v'sheretz biado. How is that still something? So I went over it. I was going over it with the student who I tutor, and he gave a interesting analogy, which is he said, and it happened to be in line with the approach we took. He said, Vidui is like giving a PowerPoint presentation to yourself about your teshuvah, okay, which is going over all the steps that you did after you've done them in order to formalize and finalize the process. So the question is, like, psychologically, why is that part of the teshuvah process? Like, why do you need that? Which I don't think we really like. Well, we addressed it through the Rambam by saying that it bolsters your conviction in teshuvah, but I think you could just take one step further and say that, like, actually it happened to work out with this student that he had, for all of high school, even before COVID, he went to like a remote online high school. So I asked him if he had like an in-person graduation, and he said yes. And I said, like, what would it have been like if you didn't have an in-person graduation? And he said, it just would have felt like, did I even like go to school? Like, you know, like there is a certain thing in the psyche of like a finalized act where you've done all the steps, but then you have to do a ma'isa that has an impact on you, that like gives you closure in a way. You know, the easier example of this, or the more visceral one, I guess literally visceral, if you take visceral in its literal sense, you know what visceral means literally?
In your face.
So that's the figurative usage, which we use most of. Visceral means, what are viscera?
Visceral?
Yeah.
In the body
Yeah, guts. Okay, so the visceral example is korbanos, right? Because what you do with the korban is you do the vidui on the korban, and you say Anasham Kadasi Visi Pshati Levanacha, Avasisi Kaf Kaf, Vizo Kaparasi, and then yeah. Okay. And so when the Rambam says that it is designed to like make you feel like there is a part of you that feels like you haven't really parted ways with your chait, even though you've done all the work with teshuvah. So even though it's impossible to put your chataim onto an animal, psychologically you feel like you're doing that when you do that, and then you burn the animal. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add like what that ma'isa does at the end is like you can also, especially since you're going through like all the like the process in your mind, right? Or saying it. So like you're kind of like seeing where you started, where you are now.
Yes, that's also true. The bird's eye view of the journey can have a bigger impact than the individual steps.
Did I really go to school? Did I really change?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, I did.
Yeah.
You can see like this is who I was, this is who I am now.
Yeah, yeah. I thought of an analogy, but no one's gonna get it. There's this video game, one of the top games of my childhood for Super Nintendo, called Earthbound. It's a role-playing game. Yeah, classic. Oh yeah, yes. So there's, if people know from Super Smash Brothers, it's where the character of Ness comes from, the kid with the baseball cap. Yeah. So they do this great thing where like in the 2 points in the game, in the middle and towards the end, you get kind of tricked into having, in one case it's a cup of coffee, and in the other case it's a cup of tea, and there's this long sequence of text where it basically like has you reflect on your entire journey and how far you've come and how much you've changed, and you can't skip the text, and there's like this calming music going on, and like it does have this feeling of like, oh, like I'm taking stock of like the entire like road that I've been on, you know.
Reminds me of like the closing scene in like the credit scene of like Ocarina of Time. And like,
yeah, right, yeah.
Like all the people and everything. Like
Yeah, all the friends you've met along the way. Yeah. So then plugging that back into the idea we said yesterday, if you did a PowerPoint on the teshuvah process and you hadn't done teshuvah, right? So it's certainly, you're not yote, because you're lying. You're saying I have, you know, but is it still useful? The answer is yes, right? Outlining like what you would need to do. First of all, acknowledging that you sinned, and then outlining what you need to do in order to depart from it, and reinforcing your belief in the efficacy of teshuvah is still helpful, but you're not yote, because that's not vidui. Vidui is the complete process at the end where you say, this is what I've done, and I'm departing from this. You know,
it would be like if you're in a group project and one guy makes a PowerPoint and the other guy like tries to get over the PowerPoint. Yeah. It's like, oh, well,
right. It's artificial, right?
Like, yeah. It's like,
yeah. Okay, so you're correct. So in the time today, I don't know if we're going to get to everything, but I kind of was in the mood to learn Mishlei. No, this pasuk in Mishlei, like let's just do a quick learning of it on a pshat level. Don't look at the portion. On a pshat level, and then figure out how it applies to doing vidui without Teshuvah. Okay, so one who conceals his offenses or crimes will not succeed, but one who admits and abandons will receive mercy. Now, in the context of the Rambam, which we're going to set aside in a second, modeh is the vidui, and ozev is abandoning, is azivas hachet. So the chiddush, according to the halacha, is it's only modeh ve'ozev is yerucham, but if you're just modeh and not ozev, then you don't get rachamim. But the question is, on pshat level, what is it saying? Yeah.
Honestly, just be inclined to say the same.
Be inclined to say the same.
I don't know the context, so outside of context, it just sounds like the pshat, because it would feel weird to be referring to a physical object in language like this.
It would feel weird to refer to a physical object, right? Well, in pshat context, it's also not referring to a physical object, right? It is referring to interpersonal hate. Wait, am I having deja vu, or did we do the pshat yesterday of this pasuk? I feel like I told the anecdote about the kid in the principal's office.
Yeah.
I did, right? Yeah, I did, right. So I did go over the pshat, right? I did go over the pshat. Yeah, the pshat is that in interpersonal chatayim, then attempting to conceal the hate is only going to make things worse. And the punching the thing in my dorm room, we did go over the pshat. Yeah.
What makes you say pshat do with interpersonal?
My general assumption is in Mishlei, unless it says that this is about your relationship with Hashem, then it's going to be in the normal decision-making context, and that's why I'm assuming that. But we did the Malbim, but let's look at the Rambam because he'll give us a hint about Hashem. So he says on this, Misha mechaseh pishav umalim osam. So someone who conceals his offenses and hides them when they investigate, when people are investigating, lo yatzliach, he will not succeed. This will cause him to lie about his crimes. Or he'll get ashamed when people find the opposite of his words, right? Like all these politicians that they deny. And then when they get caught, it's like a double shame, because not only are they being found out, but they're also being caught as a liar. Okay, but then he says, someone who sinned and then admits it and then abandons his evil ways will get mercy. Then he says, this is true for whether it's to Hashem or for a person. People will have mercy on you if they see you regretting what you did. So the question is, how does this work with Hashem? Yeah.
Just suspend that general Mishlei rule, isn't you don't have to do anything about the pasuk, you just have to not be using that rule.
Well, but here's the thing though, is that let's say in the case with the dorm punching incident, the difference is if I don't know that you did an offense against me and then I find out, then I get very mad. But Hashem knows that you did the offense. So you can't even actually hide anything from Hashem. So I think we do. In other words, what I'm saying is for certain pasukim in Mishlei that'll work. But in this case, since we're dealing with concealment and it's impossible to conceal stuff from Hashem, I think we're forced to take a different approach. Yeah.
But it's really that you're concealing it from yourself.
Right. Yeah, one who conceals his offenses will not succeed, but one who admits and abandons will receive mercy, will be granted mercy.
I mean, it's like, that's within, I guess, like, Teshuvah, right? It's like
Yeah.
If you never even get to step 0, let's say, right? And then you can't succeed in Teshuvah in like that sense.
You're saying if you're not,
you never admit to yourself that
Right.
you're wrong.
right,
You conceal the fact that you're wrong yourself. Because again, you can't conceal to God.
right,
Or from God.
yeah,
Then if Yatzliach here means like in Teshuvah,
yeah.
then you will never be able to do that because it's just, you never even get there.
Okay, so you're saying that the Teshuvah process can't start until you first admit that you sinned, and that might be why it starts it off. Someone mentioned yesterday. This is the reverse order.
Yeah.
Right. So that would answer that question, right? Yeah. Okay, you can take that approach. That is a fine approach. However, I think there's more to say on the concealing from Hashem. So I was trying to spin a theory on Friday in my Friday Women's Year, which I think has merit, but it didn't get developed. What? Yeah. So if you look at the first chait in Torah, right?
Yeah, you mentioned this.
I did?
The other day.
Okay.
Cain and Hevel.
Cain, Hevel, and
and
Adam and Chava.
They both tried to
conceal their chait, right? Did I bring in the Tanchuma?
Possibly.
Okay, so I'll repeat the move yesterday, and then I'll bring this one more step I'm taking today, is that the move is that there's a thought experiment which we'll never know the answer to, which is that what punishment would Adam and Chava have gotten if they just admitted to their sin outright? Okay, because instead of hiding and then giving an excuse and then blaming another person and then admitting, right? And I did find a midrash, and I'm not going to look it up right now because I forgot where it was, but by Cain, there is a midrash that says that he actually did get his sentence reduced because the psukim say, V'yomer Hashem el Cain, hevel achicha, v'yomer lo yadati, hashomer achiano. That's the denial, right? Then Vayomer, and Hashem says, Me asisa kol dmei achicha tzolkim elai min hadama, v'ata arur ata min hadama asher patza aspiha lakachat hasdmei achicha miyadecha. And then here's the punishment. Ki savud es ha'adama lo sosif tes kocha lach. When you work the earth, it will not continue to give its strength to you. Na v'nad tihe bards. You will be a wanderer and an exile in the land. Okay, and then what does Cain say? V'yomer Cain al Hashem gadol avoni minaso. My sin is too great to bear, which according to one shot is a confession. That's his vidui. And then, and he goes on, and then Hashem says, basically, the consequence is, Vayitze Cain milifnei Hashem v'yeshev be'eretz nod kidmas Eden. He is put in exile, but he's not a wanderer. In fact, what's the first thing he does when he gets exiled? He builds a city. Okay, right? So that's not the only way you can learn it, but it is saying that because he did a vidui, even after he did the denial, that alleviated part of his punishment. But there's a better raya in Midrash Tanchuma, which I don't even think we need to know the context here. I'll read the context. This is when the fiery snakes are sent against Klal Yisrael. It says, V'yovo ha'am el Moshe v'yomru chatanu ki dibarnu b'ad Hashem b'avach. The people came to Moshe and they said, we sinned, for we spoke against Hashem and against you. So it says, Yadanu shetibarnu b'Moshe. We know that they spoke against Moshe. Mishtatchu lefanav v'amru lo. They bowed in front of him. And they said, I don't know, well, Nishtatchulu means they spread themselves out before him, and they said to him, Hispalel Hashem v'yaser me'alenu es hanachash. Daven to Hashem and remove the nachash from us. Rabbi Omer nachash yichidi haya. Okay, this is not relevant. He says it was just one snake. Yeah. Lohodiacha, a basilisk. Anvanasuso shel Moshe, to teach the humility of Moshe. Shelo nishtaha levakish aleim rachmim. That Moshe did not delay in asking Rachmim. Here's the thing. This is teaching you the koach of the power of Teshuvah. Kiven she'amru chatanu miyad nisrata lahem. Once they said we sinned, immediately he was appeased. Okay, she'ena mochel nase lahem akzari, because the pardoner should not be cruel. So I wanted to try to work that into an answer for the Rambam here, which is that in the context of Vidui and Teshuvah, so we've been working on the premise that Vidui comes after Teshuvah at the very end, and that's when you get full kapara. Here he's talking about if you did vidui without Teshuvah, so it's tovo b'sheretz biyado, and it's this pasuk, and this pasuk is why you need vidui with Teshuvah. So I'm just wondering if we put all those pieces on the table, does anything emerge that we get from this pasuk that like sheds light on why the Rambam needs to bring this in addition to the tovo b'sheretz biyado? Let me repeat the question. Our original question was I understand the Tova of Sheretz Biyado. What do we need this pasuk for? We said the pasuk is that you can't conceal stuff from Hashem, so you're really admitting it to yourself, and you're also admitting that it's impossible to conceal stuff from Hashem, right? So, like, what does that change about the way that we're understanding this halacha, or what does this add beyond the Tova of Sheretz Biyado?
I feel like total church the other is like you know that you're still attached to the faith.
Yeah.
You're still attached to the source of the thing.
Right.
Versus this is saying like.
So you feel like all the components are here. We just have to assemble the components.
I'm finding enough between.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Yeah. Me too.
So the only thing I can think of right now is that the pasuk, like he's saying, like don't like don't forget. And like if I had plugged the pasuk into the sheriff's case, it'd be like, don't think this is not a mouse, you know?
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah, Joseph.
Why are you looking for now? You're using the pasuk as a proof for it. So why?
Well, so the way the Gemara said it is it's using it as a proof, right? Shenamar, and the Gemara brings two psukim, but the Rambam selects this one, and he didn't even really need to select it. Like, he could just codify the halacha. So I'm assuming that the Rambam was bringing this in because it enhances our understanding of it somehow. That's what I'm looking for. I was going to say maybe just one step is that the Tova v'sheretz biyado has to do with your relationship to the chet. This has to do with your relationship to Hashem and His rachamim. In other words, there's two things that are wrong with saying Vidui without Teshuvah. One, okay, here we go. One is that your Vidui is not effective, right? In the way that it's supposed to be. That's the Eina Tefilah Moelas. The second, though, is that there is a fundamental breach in your relationship with Hashem that doesn't come from the chet. It comes from the denial of the chet. No, that doesn't come from the denial of the chet. You're not denying the chet.
Right.
I got it backwards. Yeah.
And that could come from the, in a sense, denial of Teshuvah.
Yeah.
Like if I'm saying the whole point of Vidui is like a total, I don't want to say like reassessment, but like a gathering in of like the validity of Teshuvah. But you just skip all the Teshuvah stuff and say I can just confess and all be good, and I can talk about my sin or whatever. Yeah. And say I can pass it. Then in essence, you're really saying I haven't even acknowledged like Teshuvah. Right. Which means you're trying to do the thing which acknowledges Teshuvah, but you're doing it wrong because you haven't done the Teshuvah. Correct. So a good model to work with that with, just to understand the problem, is like the Catholic model. Yeah. Right. Is Vidui and Hail Marys, but no Teshuvah. Right. Right. Were you going to say something?
I wasn't going to think that we're out.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I was going to say something. Yeah. All right. So there's more to think about. Always more to think about in the Hilchos Teshuvah. Okay. Sounds good. All right. We at least delved into this halacha more than I've ever delved into it before. So that's something. All right.